As LLMs move into sensitive domains, such as law, healthcare, and policy, reliable alignment with human values is critical. Yet most evaluations lean on behavioral proxies like refusal rates, rubric scores, and toxicity flags. These surface checks often miss latent misalignments that never show up in visible outputs. In practice, a model can look compliant while internally encoding unsafe or adversarial tendencies or beliefs. Even after safety tuning, adversarial prompt attacks can slip past safeguards. With carefully crafted examples, like few-shot, policy injection, prompts, a model can produce unsafe content despite strong refusal rates on standard tests. Another newly discovered risk is alignment faking. A model selectively complies when it believes it is in training so it can preserve its preferred behavior out of training. In plain terms, it learns the appearance of alignment, safe phrases, polite refusals, policy boilerplate, while its internal belief does not change. Alignment faking slips past surface checks because those tests read the final sentence, not the decision process that produced it. In this section, we show what nDNA reveals where surface checks can't. By reading the flow beneath the words, where the path bends, how much effort it pays, and what push steers it, we detect risks like adversarial prompt attacks and alignment faking. We compare nDNA trajectories before and after safety alignment and find that alignment behaves like a lowering steer. Instead of rewriting knowledge or rebuilding circuits, it gently pushes representations along a narrow direction, optimizing what the model does, not what it knows. Before we reveal what nDNA reveals about alignment, let us quickly recap some relevant studies that reveals how direct preference optimization works. DPO learns directly from preference pairs, a chosen answer versus a rejected one. Instead of training a reward model or running on policy RL, it turns alignment into a simple classification style loss, increase the log probability of the preferred answer relative to the rejected one, while keeping the policy near a reference model to control drift. In practice, this makes alignment lighter, stabler, and sampling-free, yet competitive with RLHF. Let us look at this paper, What Makes and Breaks Safety Fine-Tuning? A mechanistic study that reveals how safety tuning, especially DPO, actually changes a model. The authors show that safety fine-tuning with DPO acts like null space steering, not a full rewiring. It adds a very small weight update, delta W, whose size is tiny compared to the base weights. The crucial point is where delta W points, its strongest directions sit near the null space of the original mapping. That lets benign inputs pass largely unchanged, while inputs that light up unsafe features get redirected into a refusal channel. The result is a localized, minimalist safety mechanism. When delta W comes from a low-rank adapter, you can think of it as two pieces. The alignment critical component sits in a sensitive subspace and is tightly controlled to preserve safety. The task-specific component is the leftover part that stays flexible for normal learning. Picture the base model as the blueprint and delta W as a renovation that adds safety beams without tearing down the structure. What this buys you? A robust refusal move that leaves instruction following behavior intact. What it doesn't? Perfect immunity. Prompts that are orthogonal to delta Ws span can sometimes slip by, revealing the limits of a single, mostly linear defense. DPO, and safety fine-tuning more broadly, optimizes what the model does, not what it knows. It redirects the flow rather than rebuilding knowledge. Geometrically, the paper shows that DPO increases the separation between safe and unsafe latent representations more than plain instruction tuning or unlearning, especially in the later decision layers. In practical terms, the model gets better at refusing harmful prompts without hurting benign answers. For more clarity, please read the paper. Following this work, recently we introduced Alignment Quality Index, AQI. We start from a simple question. If DPO works by pulling safe and unsafe examples apart in latent space, can we measure that separation? If we can, it becomes a direct readout of how well a model is aligned inside, not just in its wording. We call this measure AQI, the Alignment Quality Index. AQI summarizes how cleanly the model separates safe from unsafe flows in the decision layers. Here's the idea behind AQI, Alignment Quality Index, using the plots you are seeing. What you are looking at, each dot is a model activation from one prompt. Green is equal to safe, red is equal to unsafe. We show the same prompts at early, middle, and deep layers for an aligned model after projecting the activations to 3D space for visualization. Left, early green and red are mixed, little to no separation. Middle, clusters begin to pull apart. Right, deeper clear split, safe and unsafe live in different regions. That's what alignment looks like inside. For each layer, measure how cleanly green splits from red. We use a cluster separation index, example XIE-Bainey index, that rewards tight clusters plus big gaps and penalize overlap. You can think of it as low score when dots mingle, high score when they form two well-separated islands. Low AQI, overlap like the left panel, unsafe and safe meanings are entangled. Rising AQI across layers, separation emerges, but not yet robust. High AQI in deep layers, right panel clean internal partition, refusals trigger reliably without hurting benign answers. AQI is model agnostic and coordinate free. It doesn't care about weight names, it reads the on-input geometry. After safety tuning, example DPO, a healthy model shows AQI up, especially in the top layers, matching the visual split you see here. Over time, AQI lets you track alignment, detect regressions, and compare checkpoints by how the meaning separates, not just by output refusals. Read the paper for more clarity. We also introduce Litmus, a compact, culture-neutral safety dataset designed for DPO-style chosen rejected preference alignment. Naive preference tuning can repaint a model's inherited representations, shifting tone, culture, and even knowledge. To prevent that, we scope DPO strictly to safety preferences from Litmus, single-sentence pairs that target toxicity aversion, hate speech refusal, illegality avoidance, and harm suppression. In practice, this steers only the ethical refusal reflex, while preserving epistemic content and cultural linguistic identity. We verify the effect with nDNA. For more details, please refer to the book. Now let us try to summarize what does alignment actually change inside the model's flow. Using nDNA, we'll summarize, layer by layer, how the path bends, how the effort shifts, and how the internal push is reaimed when alignment is applied. Left to right, you are seeing Asia, Africa, and China. In each subplot, the solid line is the base model. The dashed line is after safety alignment with DPO. Axes are layers 20 to 30, curvature, how sharply the path turns, and effort, how hard the model works to reshape belief. What's common? Early layers stay almost unchanged. DPO leaves the lower stack alone. In the upper layers, the dashed path consistently bends more and climbs higher. A modest curvature bump and an effort ridge appear around the mid to high 20s. That pattern is the refusal gate DPO installs, lowering steering that nudges the flow without rewiring the model's knowledge. What's different? Asia and China show the strongest turn in the top layers, clear separation between base and DPO, signaling firmer safety actuation where these streams originally ran hotter. Africa shows a smoother, gentler lift. The same gate is present, but with less torsion. Alignment is achieved with smaller geometric cost. Takeaway: DPO doesn't redraw the river, it tightens the last bends. Across these cultures, the safety pass adds a consistent, top layer signature, more turn, a little more effort, same early foundation, making the intervention visible in nDNA while preserving the underlying flow. These four plots show the Western cohort, where the base flows already run fairly straight. The solid line is the base model. The dashed line is after safety alignment with DPO. Axes span upper layers, 20-30, curvature, how sharply the path turns, and the belief field strength or effort pair. Shared signature, DPO makes small, top layer edits, a modest bend and brief effort rise around layers till the 26-29, plus a slight tempering of the belief push. Early layers stay nearly identical. DPO is a light touch, last mile gate here. Per model, Llama, anchor clear but compact DPO bump nDNA reference pattern for minimal steering. Australia, closest overlap of base and DPO, alignment adds control without changing route. Europe, the most visible dip in the belief push near the top, signaling a firmer refusal gate. North America, a brief trough then recovery, DPO tightens the turn and releases, keeping flow smooth. Takeaway: for these models, DPO behaves like a gentle brake, not a detour, tightening the last bends and adding a small safety gate while preserving the underlying geometry of the base flow. Middle East. The dashed DPO trace makes a small, high-layer correction, a gentle tightening of the top bend and a brief effort lift near layers till the 26-28, then it settles back onto the base path. Mid-stack geometry stays intact. Here, DPO acts like a trim tab. adding a refusal gate without rerouting the flow. Latin America. The effect is stronger and more localized at the top. After DPO, the trajectory shows a sharper terminal turn with a notable drop in effort, and the belief push is tempered, a clearer safety gate before output. Mid-layers remain close to the base, but the final approach is rescored. Takeaway: across both models, DPO is last-mile steering, light and conservative for the Middle East, decisive for Latin America, tightening the final bend and reducing push where safety matters most, while preserving the underlying route. This plot shows all cultural nDNA trajectories before and after DPO alignment. DPO visibly compresses the high-turn outliers, pulling their routes toward the pre-training corridor, while the low-strain group changes very little. In short, DPO tends to harmonize the internal flow across culturally fine-tuned models. Solid lines are the base models, dashed lines are the after DPO models. The x-axis is layer number, about 2230. Near the floor, you are seeing how sharply the path turns. The vertical rise shows how strong the internal push is as the model commits to an answer. What stands out? Identity holds. Each culture keeps its characteristic route. DPO doesn't rewrite the middle of the stack, most edits land near the top. Light touch smoothing, West cluster. The base model, Europe, Australia, North America get a small cleanup at the end, a slightly tighter final turn and a modest drop in push. It's safety with minimal rerouting. Why so gentle? Likely alignment data bias. Most preference datasets are English first, West-centric, so these routes already sit close to the target policy. DPO has little to correct, leading to a polish rather than a reroute. Two effects may amplify this: a ceiling effect, already instruction-tuned in a Western register, and evaluation bias, labels reflect Western norms. The nDNA signature, minimal mid-stack change, gentle last-mile tightening, fits that picture. Last-mile gates, Global South cluster. Middle East and Latin America show the strongest top-layer change, a sharper final bend and a clear reduction in push, like a refusal gate right before output. Africa, Asia, China sit in between. The final bend tightens and the push eases, but the overall route stays recognizable. Why the heavier correction? Likely coverage mismatch. Alignment data and label norms are thinner for many global South languages and registers, so the base route is farther from the objective. DPO must steer more aggressively near the output. Common side effects in nDNA: mid-stack tension, hesitation or oscillation before the final push, and brittleness, oversteer that can trim nuance or cause benign refusals. The signature, substantial late-stage reconfiguration rather than polish, matches a Western-weighted label space. Takeaway: across cultures, DPO acts as last-mile steering. It tightens the final turn and softens the final push while leaving the middle layers largely intact. nDNA makes this visible, where the edit lands, top of the stack, how it acts, tighter turn plus gentler push, and how much it changes by culture, from light smoothing to decisive gating. What we are studying next? We are isolating value access, Schwartz-10 values, power, achievement, benevolence, etc., to measure which axis moves which culture the most. For each culture language setting, we run all the matched alignment passes, one per value, and read the change with nDNA and AQI, where the route bends, how the effort shifts, and how the final push re-aims the answer. The outcome is a clear matrix per culture, which value axis is the dominant mover, by how much, and in which layers, so we can dial the specific value knob that yields the intended change while keeping the rest of the flow stable. Let us try to summarize what we learn about alignment through the lens of nDNA. What nDNA reveals: direct preference optimization doesn't rebuild the model's beliefs. It pushes activations along a single steering direction, a global preference vector. In the logits, that looks like projecting outcomes toward the winner and away from the loser. In the hidden states, nDNA shows a uniform, directional nudge rather than a context-specific rewrite. Uniform steering. Across many prompts, the displacement has the same direction and small magnitude. That's why the red arrows line up. DPO behaves like a global steering operator, not a new reasoning module. Symmetry and reversibility. Move hidden states a little along that vector and you get the aligned response. Move back the same amount and you recover the pre-aligned state. The geometry is translation-like, a shallow slide in activation space rather than a reshaping of the manifold. Low-rank evidence. When we examine the post-alignment Jacobian with SVD, most of the energy collapses into the first mode and the rest falls off fast. In other words, the effective update is nearly rank 1. Alignment lives in a thin subspace of the model's internal space. Bottom line. DPO achieves alignment through low-rank, preference-constrained actuation. It changes what the model does, not what it knows, a last-mile shove that is shallow, mostly reversible, and predictable. That's why we see gentle polishing when the baseline is close to the target policy, and stronger gating when it's far. We take 3 numbers at every layer, times the bend of the path, spectral curvature, times the effort paid so far, thermodynamic length, and times the strength of the local belief push, norm of the belief vector, and stitch them together into a trajectory. That trajectory is the model's nDNA. From that trajectory, we define a simple steering picture of the hidden states. Start at the baseline state. At each layer, the model feels a local steering force, a direction that reflects its belief orientation, the belief vector, multiplied by the pressure from the output objective, how the logits want to change. If you keep applying those little pushes layer by layer, you trace out all the hidden states the model can reach under that steering. That set is the steering manifold. Think of it like a river run. The bend tells you where the channel turns. Sharp bends signal potential instability. The effort tells you how hard the current works to keep moving, an analog of alignment cost. The belief push strength tells you how strong the local current is, coming from culture, safety tuning, or other priors. How to read it? A curvature spike at some upper layer is equal to a sudden reroute in meaning right before output. A long rise in effort is equal to the model is spending more epistemic work to reconcile or reshape belief. A large belief push aligned with the path is equal to efficient, confident conveyance. If it opposes the path, expect hesitation or loops. So the takeaway equation says, start at the unsteered state, add the accumulated pushes, arrive at the behavior you see. That turns nDNA from a description into a mechanism. We can point to where the steering acts, often near the top layers, how it acts, tighter turns, softer or stronger push, and how much it acts for different cultures or alignments. It also explains why methods like DPO feel like last-mile nudges. They translate states along this steering field rather than rewiring what the model knows, changing how it answers, not what it has learned. Why this matters? This framing shows that any alignment, cultural, safety, or behavioral, acts by laying down structured steering fields across layers, not by rewriting all knowledge. nDNA records both the path the model took and the force field that drove it. That gives us a geometric way to see how models internalize, retain, or distort aligned beliefs, and to measure where the steering lands, how much work it does, and how stable the route is. Please refer to the book for all the details and mathematical derivations. Towards the end of the chapter, we provide a quick glimpse of our ongoing work. We argue that DPO-style alignment is, at heart, a steering vector effect. Here's how we are now thinking about DPO as steering in latent space and how we read it with nDNA. Panel A, logit geometry. Picture the model's hidden state as a point in space. DPO picks a single preference direction, the difference between chosen and rejected answers, and projects the hidden state toward that direction to widen the logit gap. In plain terms, it doesn't rebuild concepts, it leans the state along a preferred axis so the desired answer wins by a larger margin. Panel B, steering dynamics. When we visualize many prompts, we see uniform little arrows pushing hidden states in roughly the same direction. That's a low-rank, global nudge rather than a context-by-context rewrite. nDNA shows this as a consistent last-mile push in upper layers, tighter turn, modest extra effort, re-aimed belief field. Panel C, aligned versus inverted states. If we move along that learned direction, we get the aligned point. If we move the same amount backwards, we get a mirror inverted point. This symmetry tells us the update is a shallow translation, not a deep structural change. In nDNA terms, the route through the stack stays recognizable. The final steering is what changes. Takeaway. DPO achieves alignment by motion and margin, not by rewriting what the model knows. It installs a steering vector that consistently re-aims the answer near the top of the stack. Our ongoing work uses nDNA to measure that vector, where it acts, how hard it pushes, and when it over or understeers, so alignment can be made legible, testable, and reversible. Please refer to the book for all the details.